about. Alright, real trial time. Perfect score, no mistakes. April 18th. Oh, that's right, we're 8 months in the past. You okay, Athena? You've been really antsy ever since we got here. I'm just excited. This is my first real court case, after all. Yeah, a real ball of excitement she is. I know just what she needs. Take that! Athena! Oh, that's right. He yells. That's his character trait. He's loud. Eek! Didn't you ever learn about indoor and outdoor voices? I'm just trying to show you the best way to relieve your pre-trial jitters. By scaring the daylights out of me? No, I find that shouting, "I'm fine," Daijobu, in a loud voice really relieves stress. It's part of my Chords of Steel voice workout, and a must before every trial. You want me to shout? Here? That's right. Here, I'll go first, then you try. I'm Apollo Justice, and I'm Daijobu. Alright, I'm Athena Sykes. And I'm Daijobu. Everybody read your Daijobus. I think that actually worked. I thought it might help. Always works for me. An old friend of mine from junior high and I say it all the time. He'll be appearing in the last court case. Maybe. I see. A proven remedy to calm the soul. I like it. Hey, how about we finish off with a race around the courthouse? The point is to relieve stress, not get totally exhausted. And what's with all the racket? What's with all the racket, you two? Ah, Mr. Wright. Just a little voice workout. Hey, what's with the suit? Oh, this? I was thinking about getting my attorney's badge back, that's all. This is before he got reinstated. What do you call that? If you get disbarred, you can't get rebarred, because that is a construction term. That's all? That's huge news, but why now? I have a feeling I'll be needed in the courtroom again sometime soon, but we can talk about that another time. No fair. Inquiring minds want to know. But wow. I'm so used to him in his usual laid-back clothes. They didn't make a 3D model for the gross bum phoenix. They're like, we're only gonna show him once, so it can just be a sprite. That suit makes him look like $1 million. By the way, have you heard about the prosecutor assigned to this case? Yeah, he's serving time, but before that he was a prosecutor. He also uses psychology? That's right. I've heard the rumors about how he was back before his conviction. Using the power of suggestion, he could make even the most stalwart defendants confess. Psychology in the courtroom. Been hearing a lot about that lately. So he must be a pretty scary guy, considering he's a prison inmate and all. So they say. They also say he'll cut you down if you talk too much. You mean I can't press as much as I want? Ack! I knew he was gonna be bad news. It's probably just hyperbole, at least I hope for your sake. Wait, so is it true or not? Let's just say you should be concise and choose your words carefully. If you'd like to keep that head of yours attached to the rest of your body, that is. Yikes! Better tone down my cords of steel, too. So are you all ready? It might be a good idea to check the court record again before stepping into the ring. Right, Mr. Wright. But I'm Daijobu. I'll be watching from the gallery. Good luck. Thanks. Yeah, how is he going to decapitate me? You're not allowed to bring weapons into the courtroom. Okay, let's do this. The odds of pulling this off are ridiculously low, but that's nothing new. Believe in our client. Seek the truth. That's all we can do. Hang in there, Mayor Tenma. Here comes justice. Day 1. Court is now in session. All rise. Is he gonna be in, like, actual prison stripes? Like, they don't even give him a suit? He's gonna have to be, like, in the Hannibal Lecter thing with the grill over his face. Court is now in session for the trial of Damien Tenma. Apollo Justice defense team leader is ready, Your Honor. I'd know that big booming voice anywhere. As chipper as ever, Mr. Justice. But who is the young lady next to you? I'm Athena Sykes, Mr. Justice's junior partner and fresh out of law school. Well now, full of beans. Full of beans. Isn't that... There was a... what episode of The Simpsons is that? Is that the one where... Is that the 8-Ball didn't see that one coming? There's some Simpsons episode where someone uses that expression. Millhouse is up and full of beans. Full of beans too, eh? Excellent. Makes an old man feel young again. Now for the prosecution. He's invisible! It appears that the prosecution is invisible. Never fear, for I shall explain. It's just a minor procedural complication, Your Honor. The prosecutor for this case is being escorted from prison as we speak. Prison? Oh yes, of course. I almost forgot that he is currently serving time, because nobody mentioned it every time they mention him.
Yup, Prosecutor Blackwell's an inmate.
Again.
But even a convicted murderer still got a job to do and duties to perform.
Yes. Yes, he did. Naturally. I mean, let's just go down the list of all the ridiculous things. He's actually innocent, and the final case is going to be jumping in a time machine and going back to, like, prove his innocence. Who's that with his back to us over there? That's him. I'm sure of it. Prosecutor Blackwell. Is the prosecution ready? Wait, why a feather? Oh, wait, like a quill? Like, is he gonna take it out of his mouth and write with it? I don't know. Enough jabbering. Get on with it already. Ah, of course, forgive me. Top tier daddy. Erg. Why are all the people related to this case so scary? Very well. Prosecutor back. Whoa! What are you doing? Ah, what's the matter? He's going to jangle all game long. That's going to be his thing. Must we continue to fritter away? Must we continue to fritter away time like this? It is all right there in the indictment. An opening statement would be pointless. Pointless? Oh, well. Looks like the cat, or in this case, the prosecutor, has the judge's tongue. But we need an opening statement as an overview of the case at hand. Well then, your baldness. If it is so important, why don't you do the honors? Who? Me? There's a term for people who whine and fuss about how they need silly, useless things, and then decide they no longer want them once it's theirs. A selfish old fool. Huh? Wait, was that the prosecution's opening statement? I can't be expected to read the case file. I'm the judge. Old dotard? Oh, that is a word. That is a word. Dotard. Old dotard such as you are a plague upon the young. I pity your poor grandchildren. Or is it great-grandchildren? I'll knock their brains out with a hammer. How can I have any grandchildren if I don't have any children? All these years, I thought the opening statement was the prosecutor's job. But I suppose I could give it a try. Might be a nice change of pace. What? He actually fell for that? That must have been the power of suggestion Mr. Wright was talking about. Ahem. The opening statement, huh? Let's see here. The victim was one Rex Cuby, alderman of Ninetails Vale. And the defendant, Damien Tenma, mayor of Tenmatown, is accused of his murder. And why, pray tell, was the mayor arrested? His prints were on the murder weapon. Plus, he had a motive. The elimination of the biggest roadblock to the municipal merger. The caretaker and the secretary, other potential suspects, both have alibis. And his daughter, who was also in the vicinity at the time of the incident, has no motive. So in a nutshell, I'd have to say the charges against the defendant are incontrovertible. Bravo, your baldness. Your years of experience shine bright like your head. Oh, flattery will get you everywhere. He's playing Simon Says with the judge. Moving right along now. Let's hear from our first witness for today, Detective Fulbright. So this is fun because just as a matter of opinion and taste, I probably, you have some Phoenix Wright cases where the prosecutor is not actually a bad guy, right? You've got, in case 1-5, you're up against Edgeworth, but he also ultimately just wants the truth. He's not trying to prove that the defendant is guilty, even though he kind of is. Ultimately, that's not what he wants. Same thing happens in 2-5 or 2-4, whatever. Does he takes over as the prosecutor, and towards the end you're just stalling for time, kind of, and then through most of game 3, you've got what's his name, Godot, who isn't a bad guy. He's not he's doing that prosecutor thing. He was well, I really just want the truth. And then through all of Apollo Justice, I never felt like Clavier was doing a good job of being the antagonist, because he wouldn't object when you finally got to the truth. I prefer when the prosecutor is the bad guy. I prefer when you defeat them rather than cooperating with them. I think it's interesting that there are some cases where, hey, the prosecution winds up going, I'm not a bad guy, I just want the truth. It's more interesting as a game, because then it's more, you can buy more into the idea that, hey, if I don't defend this person, they really will go to jail and whatever, get death penalty or something when they really, really didn't do it. I think it's more fun when the prosecutor is just a pure antagonist. And this guy probably will be, at least until the last case, and we'll see what happens there. Witness, please state your name and occupation. I'm the detective assigned to this case, Bobby Fulbright. Oh, and I'll also be keeping tabs on old Blackwell here. also heard you would provide protection if it ever came to that. It would seem that I've been sorely underestimated. Wait, who's protecting who from what? Yeah, Franziska was great. Blah. People are talking and interrupting. Yeah, I liked her as an antagonist because she, was like, I'm the perfect prosecutor. I've never been defeated in all of Germany, blah, blah, blah. And she really, really hated Phoenix for a good reason and wanted to beat him. Fool, Wright. Save your platitudes for funerals. Get on with your statement. That's the spirit. Justice must be swift and true. I see it in your eyes. There is hope for your rehabilitation and return to society. I will never give up on you. Prosecutor Blackwell doesn't seem to intimidate Detective Fulbright. Well, you know what they say, ignorance is bliss. Oh, so that's why Detective Fulbright was assigned to Blackwell. He's so oblivious. I'm starting to suspect less and less that he and LaBelle are the same person. I think it's just a coincidence that they both have a little flip to their hair. Now, let's have your first statement, Detective Fulbright. The Yankee Gal 13, hello. Hello to you too. How are you? You got it. But first I'd like to say to the defense that justice... Maybe, is he supposed to have, like, a Taka voice? Like Taka from Danganronpa? You got it! But first I'd like to say to the defense that justice will ultimately prevail. Yeah, I had him all wrong at first, because I thought he was the guy that they showed at the beginning that was the murderer. He's actually the goody two-shoes detective who's going to be in lots of cases, maybe. Alderman Cubey was murdered with a spear that had been on the wall. The fingerprints of the defendant, Damien Tenma, were found on the murder weapon. At the time, Alderman Cubey was asleep from a drug he unwittingly ingested. Mayor Tenma attacked his helpless victim, impaling him like a human shish kebab. But the sudden pain jolted the victim awake, and he grabbed a statue and struck back. Did he? Is that their story? Alderman Cubey had been slipped some kind of sleep-inducing drug? That's right. The accused was scared because the alderman was a former pro wrestler, so he slipped him a drug to make sure he'd be out cold and defenseless. Here's the autopsy report to prove it. And the victim managed to attack his attacker, despite being impaled by a spear. Yes, you see, he was unconscious. People are capable of superhuman feats. Like taking pictures. That sounds almost superhuman. Is it even possible? Well, he was a former pro wrestler, after all. That spear was probably nothing more than a mosquito bite to him.
Objection!
Not so fast. Don't try to brush it all off by saying the alderman had been a pro wrestler. Do you really expect us to believe he could fight back after being skewered by a spear? Never heard of the incredible feats of which man is capable of in a pinch, have you? Like the samurai of yore, wrestlers can battle through intense pain. It sharpens their senses. I used to talk about it with a former wrestler I met in the clink. I don't know. It still sounds a little far-fetched. Does it now? Then perhaps we should test the theory on you with the edge of my blade. He has a blade! You're not allowed to. It'd be different if we were in what was the Professor Layton place called? Where the guy was constantly taking out the sword and doing his dabbing strike. Historica? I didn't sign up for this. He doesn't have a sword. That's just handcuffs. And so your life is spared. For now. Please let those shackles be made of titanium. I don't want to die. Haha, my investigations are as thorough as they are foolproof. or my name isn't Fulbright. I vow to resign immediately if I ever make a false arrest. The accused prints were on the weapon, and he's the one person without an alibi. Quite decisive evidence. What was that eye just now? What did you do with your eye? Was it a twitch? Was it allergies? Or did he have superpowers? I thought his eye turned red. Wouldn't you agree, your baldness? The defendant is sounding guiltier by the minute. Actually, yeah, every character that we've met has superhuman powers. Why should Alderman QB be any different? He has the judge leaning toward a guilty verdict, and the trial's just barely begun. What's more, a curious rumor about the accused is making the rounds. They say he seeks the merger for the purpose of freeing Tenmataro from his imprisonment. Truth be told, I can think of no real reason to show interest in that backwards burg. Perhaps he's a complete nutter and really does seek to release an imaginary demon. Either way, he is raving mad and more than capable of murdering the alderman. Ever X, glad you could make it. I heard he went on a blood drive, but instead of making a donation, he made a withdrawal. What? Order! There will be no gossiping in my court. Your baldness, please take a gander at those charms plastered across his cranium. I hear they're meant to keep him safe from possession by the demon Tenmataro. Then again, perhaps he's already under the demon's spell. Behold, the lunatic appears poised to lunge at you any moment. Eep!
Hold it!
She's so animated. I like her. The rumors and quirks of Mayor Tenma have no relevance to this case. Besides, those charms on his head, they're just a fashion statement, I think. Tomoyo. Come to think of it, such things don't seem relevant to the case, do they? The prosecution will refrain from dragging our client's reputation through the mud. Oh, what a dreadfully fearsome lass we have here. Phew, thanks for that lifeline, Athena. I don't know how to be a lawyer. Careful, Apollo. He has the judge dancing in the palm of his hand. The power of suggestion is one of the more powerful tools in Simon Blackwell's arsenal. He's trying to manipulate everyone's impressions to suit his objectives. That's not a superpower. That's what lawyers do. That's how you lawyer. It's actually how you lawyer. Be careful. He's trying to convince everyone that he's correct. This guy really is bad news. I love the backwardsness of this world. Everyone has superpowers. His is that he's a lawyer, and everyone hates him for it. Also, yes. So, the backstory on this prosecutor is that he committed a murder or a series of murders that caused Japanifornia's court system to turn into this bizarre farce. They've actually called attention to the fact that this is not the way that courts used to operate, but that they changed to this system because of him. And he's been in jail this whole time, and now but because he is such a good prosecutor, they let him out from time to time to prosecute cases. In any case, it seems the victim did manage to defend himself despite being impaled. What sort of weapon did he use against his attacker? None other than this statue right here. It appears to be a statue of two strange creatures locked in a battle. Two yokai, to be exact. On one side is the nine-tailed fox, and the other Tenmataro. Quite interesting if you think about it. It's as though this very case were rendered in art. Mayor's blood could be found on it. No prints could be lifted. Interesting. Interesting. Doo-ba-doo-doo. Mr. Justice, you may proceed with your cross-examination. Oh, so you're playing through and you're currently on Justice for All. Yeah, I'll try to avoid spoiling things from the earlier games then. They are all very good. I like the whole Phoenix Wright series. The last one, the only other one that I've played on stream was... No, wait, we've played 2 other ones on stream. One was Miles Edgeworth Investigations, which was okay, and then Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, which was not really that good, but also not really like a true Phoenix Wright game. All right, shall we press?
Hold it!
So those weapons on the wall of the Fox Chamber, I presume those are real? Oh yeah, !hide. You can type that if you want to say something to the chat without saying it to me. So if you were going to point out how I stupidly noticed or failed to notice a really important detail, like doesn't he realize that he's supposed to you can talk with everybody else in the chat without revealing it to me, so that I may remain blind for this playthrough. Oh. Alright. Let me see. So those weapons in the weapon. Don't you think keeping real weapons around like that is rather dangerous? No matter what he collected, the alderman insisted it be the real deal. For instance, he had a real demon's club in his possession. Apparently one of his ancestors claimed it after defeating a demon in battle. What? That's got to be an old wives' tale. Ha ha ha! The alderman had pure, unadulterated justice flowing through his veins. What? Control yourself. Whatever he did it right. We've lost a real champion of justice in his death. Nothing but claptrap and balderdash, if you ask me. Now stop your bleating and tell us about the weapon. Your wish is my command.
Hold it!
It doesn't make sense if you think about it. Prince could be easily wiped off. You do have a point there. I'd venture to say he did not wipe off the prince because he could not. What do you mean? Jingle jangle. Looks like he wants you to figure it out. Well, don't just stand there. Show him who's boss. I'm totally lost. So why don't you just tell me the answer already? I don't think he saw that plea for help. You feeling all right, kid? Running a fever, perhaps? I wish trials came with a reset button. They do. I don't know where it is. I'm not going to push it anyway. Well, the specifics may yet come to light. Please proceed, Detective Fulbright. So we'll be coming back to that one once we have something that contradicts it. Come to think of it, a coffee cup was found on the floor. Was the sedative in his coffee? Bingo! We found traces of a sleeping agent all over the inside of the cup. And that is why he was out cold. That is, until he leapt to his feet upon being impaled by the mayor. What an awful way to wake up. A rather stimulating eye-opener, if you ask me. I, too, would have risen to the attack, for to die in battle is the samurai way. Paradise awaits fallen heroes, but that hole in his stomach would make eating a challenge. Hilarious. Prosecutor Blackwell, please. Those morbid jokes of yours have no place in this court. Says the jester in detective's guise. Moving right along. I like this. I haven't gotten to do the taco voice since Danganronpa 1.
Hold it!
So the alderman was drugged because he was really strong? Did you see those rock-hard muscles of his? I'm surprised the spear even managed to pierce that armor-like musculature. I admit I'm completely jealous of that righteous body of his. Ha ha ha! Well, he did look pretty buff, even in that suit he had on. Quite a difference when compared with a yellow belly like you. Yellow belly? Who even says that anymore? Yeah, and the color's all wrong, too. Oh, I know. How about a squishy red tomato? I move to strike both your comments from the record. Mr. Justice's character is not the issue here. Now, let's get back to what happened after the far more muscular alderman was impaled. Yes, well, your average person would likely have died on the spot. But the sudden... Oh.
Hold it!
Could he really have attacked his attacker after being impaled with that huge spear? Does the autopsy report say he died instantly? They like doing that. They like doing that a lot. Doesn't say. Absolutely. After all, he was once a pro wrestler. The injustice of being drugged and then speared was answered with a righteous counterattack. But does being a former pro wrestler make him superhuman? Absolutely. After all, he was one of the good guys, like a superhero on the side of justice. Even though he was retired, he could still don his superhero guise in times of need.
Objection!
You need to lay off the comic books, Detective. We're talking about real life here. Setting aside the half-wits flights of fancy, the fact is this. The court-ordered post-mortem concluded the victim moved after his skewering. So he found the strength somehow to attack his attacker, huh? Detective Fulbright's testimony sounds airtight. No wonder he's so confident. No, he only thinks it's airtight. It's up to us to poke some holes in it. That part about the alderman fighting back sounds like a big hole waiting to be poked. So... Oh, well, if the mayor was not wearing gloves, so there should be prints on the statue. That's the problem. Presento.
Objection!
Did the alderman really strike the mayor? What? Are you questioning my sense of justice? Your so-called justice needs to find itself a pair of legs to stand on. You claim the alderman struck back after the mayor put a spear through him. But the statue he supposedly used to defend himself creates a major hole in your theory. It would appear that the defense has a counter-argument. Very well. Let's hear what the defense thinks is odd about the detective's statue theory. He didn't, when he fought in the ring as a pro wrestler, he never used statues to bludgeon people. There's no fingerprints. There are no fingerprints on this supposedly crucial piece of evidence. And if you look at the crime scene photo, you'll notice that the alderman isn't wearing gloves. Yes, I believe he is quite gloveless indeed. Victim is gloveless. Repeat, gloveless. If he touched the statue with his bare hands, it should have left some fingerprints. Detective Fulbright, you did take that into account during your investigation, didn't you? Arrgh! This can't be happening. Did I arrest the wrong man? You did it, Apollo. You knocked Detective Fulbright off his high horse. Well, it's just 1 point in our favor. Who do you suppose clubbed the mayor if it wasn't the alderman? Well, if it wasn't the alderman, that means someone else must have clubbed the mayor. You mean there was a third party there in the Fox Chamber? Exactly. And this could be the big break we've been looking for. There does seem to be a hole in the prosecution's argument. Prosecutor Blackwood, would you care to respond to the defense's assertion? The least you could do is look at me while being dismissive. Your mind is as dull as an unhoned blade, Justice O'Donnell. Wait. I love it. Alright. Is that... Alright. Justice don't know. He's been watching too many samurai flicks where people say don't know. He's been watching too many Narutos. It will take far more than that to cut down Simon Blackwell. A whelp such as you has no hope against my superior swordsmanship. This is a trial, not a sword fight, Prosecutor Blackwell. There is a perfectly good explanation for the lack of prints on the statue. You might recall that blood-stained cloth found at the crime scene. Well, it just so happened that the blood was the mayor's. So, what are you getting at? Hone your mind, boy. Why was there blood on that cloth? Solve that riddle, and you shall see the hole you thought you found is but an illusion. Now, let's see. How was that cloth used? Was it used... as a head covering? Yeah, that's probably what it... Was the... See, now, I've only seen, like, Kenshin do that, and, like, ending all of the sentences with, Degozaru. I wonder, though... it's such a shame. Why don't I just learn Japanese, is the question. Why not play this game in Japanese? Sigh. I guess they're gonna, like, if we're saying this cloth is the reason that there are no fingerprints. They didn't wipe up blood with it, or else there would be no blood on the statue, and there clearly is some. So we're gonna say to wrap the statue. If he says maybe, it means he picked wrong. Maybe the alderman wrapped the statue in a cloth. In short, he wasn't touching the statue directly when he used it to strike back at the mayor. Precisely. Oh, no, okay, I got it right. They're messing with my meta-knowledge of Phoenix Wright. Usually... if you pick something and they're like, maybe it was this, it's like guaranteed that you got it wrong. But he's fucking with me. He's using that psychology. That's not fair. No superpowers allowed. Only supernatural hearing and vision. No lawyer powers. Precisely. Bully for you, boy. It was nothing. Apollo, don't let him start manipulating you too. You just closed the hole for the prosecution. I did? I did! Right. That statue wrapped in a cloth would leave no fingerprints. That a statue wrapped in cloth would leave no fingerprints is as plain as day. But this also proves there are no holes in our theory of the alderman striking back. Oh man, yeah, playing Persona 5 in Japanese. Well, Persona 5 taking twice as long. Is he still playing it to this day? Persona 5 is a really long game, from what I understand. But yeah, trying to read through. There have been a couple of times when I've gone like, oh, I really want to know what this says. Either some like page of something or some little reference from something, and just actually going through and trying to look up a kanji is so difficult. Like, there's this cool little kanji lookup website where you like draw the kanji with your mouse and it makes its best guess at like, this is what I think, these are the kanji I think you were trying to draw, so that you can check them out. But unless you're really accurate, which is difficult when you're copying it off of something that is sloppy or really small. And even when not, there's so many, like when you look at those like 12 and 13 and 14 stroke kanji, they're so complicated. He gave up 90 hours in and restarted in English. Gosh. Now do you see how dull your mind is? I'll make sure to sharpen it next time. A particularly frightening inmate once told me that he always tenderly honed his blades before he went to work, like the samurai of yore. Samurai? Sounds more like a homicidal maniac to me. Actually, he was working in the prison kitchen at the time. Wait, so the inmate was a murdering samurai prison chef? It would seem that the victim and his killer were the only ones there after all. I was kind of attached to that hole. Now what? Apollo, I just thought of something. If they didn't find anyone's fingerprints on the statue, who's to say someone other than the alderman didn't hit the mayor with it? Why didn't I think of that? Anybody could have not left prints on it. Alright, take care, Fox, and see you later. Then who, pray tell, struck the mayor with the statue? Please, illuminate us with your wisdom, young lady. There's only one answer. The real killer. Prove the existence of this real killer, then. What evidence have you? Oh, I'll give you evidence, all right. Athena, are you sure about this? To borrow your words, Apollo, I'm Daijobu. Take a look at this. Black feathers and tracks, allegedly from a yokai, were found at the scene. I believe they're from the third party who struck the mayor with that statue. Is the defense actually suggesting some sort of monster killed that alderman? That's exactly what I'm suggesting. I'm done.
Objection!
No, Athena, you just lost what little credibility we had left. Sorry. Guess I got carried away. Mr. Justice, we've no time to deal with objections between members of the defense. Sorry, Your Honor. A yokai. Yokai is a Japanese demon. I guess I don't know the specifics. I know them from, like, Toho. And I've never actually seen Yokai Watch, but I've heard of it. Yeah, Japanese... yeah, I guess demon isn't the right term. Supernatural being, I guess. Sorry, Your Honor. It's just, this kid's still, well, a kid. Ouch. Itai, you meanie, I'm reporting this to Mr. Wright. So is this court to believe that the feathers and tracks are from a yokai, as you put it? No, Your Honor. I believe they are a fabrication. The real killer wants us to believe some sort of monster murdered the alderman. Interesting. And why do you suppose the killer would do that? Why indeed? Mr. Justice, you seem as new to this as your partner. Itai. This I'm not reporting to Mr. Wright. Hoy, fool Bright. Explain to his baldness what these brats are missing. You know, the who and why behind those feathers and tracks. What? You mean you can explain all that? Ha ha ha! Our investigative prowess is without equal. I'm starting to think I chose the wrong profession. Very well. Let's hear about these so-called yokai feathers and tracks. Feathers and tracks. This entire case centers on one man's attempt to crush opposition to the municipal merger. Mayor Tenma panicked when the amazing Ninetales helped embolden the protesters, so he stoked the village's fears by fabricating a monster. The strange feathers and tracks he planted make it look like a yokai was the killer. Oh, okay. Those feathers and tracks stoked the villagers' fears. Absolutely, he knew exactly how to prey on their superstitious minds. Those feathers only gave weight to the idea that the alderman was slain by a demon. The accursed Tenma Taro, that is. Tenma who? Tenma Taro, the legendary demon locked away in the village's forbidden chamber. From a young age, the villagers are taught to fear the great black-feathered demon, and thus were they blinded to other more plausible explanations.
Hold it!
Hold on for a second. Before we start letting our imaginations run wild, isn't there someone else that could be considered a suspect? Mr. Justice, please explain yourself. On the day of the incident, there was a special... On the day of the incident, there was a special event held at QB Manor. And as part of this event, there was someone dressed in the likeness of Tenma Taro. Obviously, this person is a much more likely suspect than any legendary demon.
Objection!
Was that his objection? Dullard, you are playing right into the killer's mind games. What? Listen here, the feathers and tracks were merely red herrings. The villagers believed the murder to be the work of the real Tenma Taro. However, the police believe that the person in the Tenma Taro suit is the killer. The defendant sought to sow this confusion in order to deflect blame away from himself. However, he was knocked unconscious by the alderman, and thus our mentally deficient mayor was caught red-handed at the scene of the crime.
Objection!
Do you honestly believe Mayor Tenma would do something so
Objection!
stupid? The evidence speaks for itself. Fool Bright. Right. It was the mayor's last-ditch effort to stop the opposition before things got crazy. The amazing Ninetales was fueling both the yokai craze and the anti-merger movement. Plus, he's one of the better-known masked wrestlers and the hometown favorite. That's why the mayor panicked and set out on the path of injustice. But do the people of Ninetales really believe a yokai is behind the crime? Yokai sightings are an everyday event there, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I must say, a crime that preys upon innocent, impressionable minds. Just so. A particularly silver-tongued inmate. That's... He has all of this, like, ancient wisdom, but it's all from inmates that he's talked to. A particularly silver-tongued inmate once had the following words for me. The innocents of heart are the easiest prey. You don't say. Was this inmate a con artist? No. He was framed for the murder of his beloved. I actually felt sorry for the poor chap. Oh, that's empty. No more soda. Wait, so he wasn't the predator, but rather the prey? Yes, well. Now then, the defense may proceed with their cross-examination. I shall do so.
Hold it!
Hold it. Detective Fulbright, is the anti-merger movement really that strong? Oh, absolutely. They parade around in yokai costumes, shouting, "Down with Mayor Tenma." We're getting echoes of Higurashi here, with the people opposed to the dam. And then they stormed City Hall! Wow. And just the other day, they stormed Tenma City Hall, claiming it was a den of vipers. But when the accused showed his face, the angry mob scattered like leaves upon an autumn wind. For you see, lowly yokai are no match for Tenmataro, the dark lord of their kind. Wait, are the villagers scared of Mayor Tenma or Tenmataro? I'm confused. I think he means Mayor Tenma. It's easy to get the wrong impression about the guy. Call Oyashiro-sama to the stand. Yes, we shall do that. It turns out the whole village is actually just infected with bacteria that makes them believe in yokai. Detective Fulbright, why do you suppose the defendant would commit such an act?
Hold it!
The amazing Ninetales. No one knows his true identity, right? That's right. And he was a lone wolf, or in other words, he didn't belong to a wrestling federation. He appeared like a shooting star, defeating one Tenma Town wrestler after another. And before anyone knew it, he was champion. Like the samurai of yore, surrounded thick by enemies, he cut them down one by one. It was a complete and utter loss of face for Tenma Town Pro Wrestling. It was amazing. If ever there was a real superhero, it would be him. I dream of becoming a true champion of justice like him someday. I bet Detective Fulbright would be a great pro wrestler. He could even team up with Prosecutor Blackwell. A police detective and a prisoner in chains. You know, I think people would actually pay to see that. I know I would. Ha ha ha! So you do understand the greatness that is the amazing Ninetales.
Hold it!
Did the murderer and yokai evidence really stoke the villagers' fears? Absolutely, it had an immediate effect. The presumed return of the dreaded Tenmataro has them shaking in their boots. Oh my, is it really that bad? That superstitious lot. It's as if Jack the Ripper had been set loose in their village. The mere thought of that demon lurking about is enough to spark a mass exodus. I see. That's a very persuasive argument. The mere thought of His Honor buying into Simon the Psycho Slasher's words makes me want to spark my own exodus out of the courtroom right now. Hey-oh. So you see, there can only be one reason why anyone would plant those feathers and tracks.
Hold it!
So I don't actually see anything yet that we can contradict. But it doesn't add up. If what you say is true, why top it off with murder? What do you mean? You claim that our client planted the yokai evidence to stoke the villagers' fears. If so, then why not stop there? Why murder Alderman Cubey? Excellent point. It is, isn't it? So Your Honor agrees that there was no reason for the murder, correct? Perhaps the killing was on the spur of the moment. You're saying it wasn't premeditated? From the outside, I had no intention of paying heed to any of your babble. However, the fact is the mayor made a startling discovery. A startling discovery? Why don't I like the sound of that? Alderman Cubey's secret identity. Apollo? I think Prosecutor Blackwell has figured out the Alderman's secret identity. But even if he has, why would it be a motive for the mayor to commit murder? This is not good. This patch of fur was discovered at the crime scene. It's from the mask worn by the amazing Ninetales. Therefore, we can conclude that this mask was at the crime scene. Oh my. But why would it have been there? The victim was a former pro wrestler and member of the anti-merger movement. Need I say more? Well, could it really be? Your baldness has had an epiphany, I see. Our victim, Rex Cubey, was the amazing Ninetales, and the mayor's discovery of such was his motive for murder. No! Okay. Bang, bang, bang. Order! Order! What a shocking development. A motive clearer than crystal clear. What do we do now, Apollo? I didn't think they'd tie the alderman's secret identity to the mayor's motive for murder. At last, we've reached my real point. Why did the alderman have to forge a secret identity? Does it not pique your interest, your baldness? I admit it does. It is odd that he had to create this other persona, just to secretly participate in the anti-merger movement. Very astute of you, your baldness. Right. Now, take a look at this. Oh. Okay, this is the blackmail letter that was actually written to Tenma. If you value your dearest life, you will merge Ninetales Vale with Tenma Town. Do not tell anyone about this threat. If you do, consider your dearest as good as dead. They moved it to the other guy's pocket. This blackmail letter was found in Alderman Cubey's pocket. At present, the alderman's wife is in the hospital, and that letter is clear evidence the mayor was blackmailing him with her by threatening her life. Wait, didn't the blackmail letter sent to Mayor Tenma go missing right after the alderman's murder? Do you think maybe the killer took the letter from the mayor after the murder and planted it into the alderman's pocket? It's possible, but we don't have any proof that that's what happened. Talk about being up the creek without a paddle. Right, I'll be right back. Mayor Tenma would have made a clean getaway if he'd just left after planting the yokai things, but he was knocked out cold by his sudden decision to kill the amazing Ninetales. Drink of the day is Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry. So, it was the amazing Ninetales counterattack that brought the entire crime to light. Wait a sec. Fulbright's claiming that the mayor killed the alderman after planting the yokai evidence, and that the mayor was knocked out cold immediately after that? Detective Fulbright, please add your previous statement to your testimony. Mayor Tenma killed the sleeping alderman after planting the feathers and tracks. Weren't the tracks made of blood? The blood come from? He does. I'm glad he is passionate. I'm glad I have his correct voice now.
Objection!
Yes, this is. I'm sure this is how court really goes. Detective Fulbright, your sense of justice is anything but fair. What's this? You dare question my justice again? Yes, and I'm going to prove it to you. Take a look at this photo. This is the crime scene photo. And just what does this prove? It proves when the feathers and tracks were planted. But I already told you, they were planted before the murder. The defendant planted the yokai evidence, then was knocked out while killing his victim. But that would be impossible. If you look right here, it's clear when the feathers and tracks were left at the scene. I assume they want us to see that the feathers do not have blood on them? right?
Take that!
Aren't you just pointing to the yokai feathers and tracks, Mr. Justice? Yes. See how the feathers are on top of the blood? And the tracks... Yeah, that's the more important one, really. The tracks were made in blood. I was afraid to just pick the tracks, though. I'm like, they're not going to get it. Do they really... I'm like, they probably mean that the feathers are on top of the blood, and there's no blood on top of the feathers. In other words, the yokai evidence could have only resulted after the murder. Then, the mayor must have planted the evidence after killing the alderman. But you said it yourself. The mayor had been knocked unconscious thereafter. Exactly. He was knocked unconscious, got up and put the feathers and tracks out, had a brief conversation, wrote his memoirs. There would have been no time for him to plant any evidence at all. Therefore, there must have been someone else besides the mayor and alderman at the crime scene. Arg! There must be some mistake.